विदेश से आए
Hello and welcome. I am Devika Diwan and you're watching NewsX World's special coverage of the SCO Summit. Ahead of the Ahead of the 2025 Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev, Belarusian President Alexander, and Maldivian President Mohammad Mizu have already arrived in the host city. Today, Myanmar's junta leader Min Aung Hlaing met with Chinese President Xi Jinping, joining previous discussions with Nepal's KP Sharma Oli and Kazakhstan's Kasim Jomart Tokayev. Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli expressed gratitude for the bilateral talks, noting their productive discussions and reaffirming Nepal's commitment to strengthening ties with China. The summit will officially kick off on the 31st of August and run through the 1st of September. The leaders of the summit will be addressing major issues such as regional security, digital cooperation, and new topics like artificial intelligence and cyber defense. But what does this summit truly signify? Take that conversation forward. I have with me Mr. Andrew K.P. Leung, who's an expert on China, joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Leung, I want to understand from your perspective. You join us from London. Firstly, if you can tell us how exactly is the UK now watching the events unfold in the other part of the world?
Sorry, are you asking me?
Yes, Mr. Leung.
Yes, well, I can't speak for the UK, but what I know is, of course, this is a pivotal moment, not only for China and India or members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, but for the world as a whole, because the whole world order, which was founded and led by the United States since the end of the Second World War, has now been totally upended by President Trump 2.0, pivoting towards American first hegemony and also using coercive tactics, bullying countries, not only China as an existential threat to American dominance, but also Americans' traditional allies.
All right.
Allies. But also countries, partners like India and countries around the world. So I think that this is not a coalition, because no country wants to make an enemy of the United States, but to recalibrate relationship with the world's most powerful country, both in military terms and economy, but regarded as an increasingly unpredictable and less reliable partner, and also recalibrating relationship with each other despite the differences.
Mr. Leung, I also want to understand from you, in your perspective, has the tariff war by the United States of America somewhere inadvertently pushed the U.S. adversaries and some of its allies closer together?
Sorry, you're asking me, or?
Yes, Mr. Leung.
Okay, right. Well, I don't think that that's in this kind of calculation, because if you look at what happened with countries like Russia and Iran, the doyen of American foreign policy, the former doyen, he was the mentor of Henry Kissinger, Brzezinski. In his seminal book in 1997, the Grand Chessboard, on page 55, he did warn that the greatest existential threat to American dominance would be if the countries of Iran and Russia and China are grouping together. And this is what is happening now, despite his forewarning about decades ago. But this is not forming a solid bloc, because there are many differences between Russia and China, and even between Iran and China. But they are pushed closer together, not so much pulled together, although of course there is a pull element there, but they are largely pushed together. And that you can include India as well now. But as I said, it's not forming a bloc, it's a recalibrating relationship with each other.
All right, Mr. Ng, stay on with me as more news comes in from the SCO. At the summit, United Nations has said that China's support for multilateralism is vital. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has emphasized that amid growing global tensions, especially from US trade policies, China's support for the United Nations remains vital for global stability. Xi, in return, has reassured the UN chief of China's continued commitment to being a reliable partner and to strengthen the UN's central role in international affairs. Both of them acknowledged the importance of collaboration to maintain peace and prosperity. Listen in.
8 years ago led to the approval of the United Nations and the approval of the... And we are extremely appreciative and grateful for that.
Joining me on the broadcast is Mr. Raymond Vickery, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce. Mr. Vickery, thank you so much for joining us on NewsX World. I have to begin by asking, what do you make of certain comments that have been made at the SCO Summit as far as China's role in the UN is concerned? This is, of course, also keeping in mind the larger context of America under Donald Trump questioning the role of the UN and other such agencies.
I believe that this SCO Summit is important, but is not dispositive of the needs of India in regard to its relationship with other nations. There's no question that what President Donald Trump had done has pushed India away from the United States and closer to other countries, whether they be authoritarian or democracy, authoritarian like China or Russia. But it should be remembered that Prime Minister Modi is coming from Japan to China. Japan, a vibrant democracy, which has much more in common with India than does China. I would hope that the principles of the United Nations, which are in the UN Charter, would be a bedrock for policy of India as well as China and the rest of the world. Those include principles against the invasion, aggression, imperialism, which has been displayed by Russia, and are contrary to what China has often claimed in terms of its ability in the South China Sea to take over an entire state of India or a natural product.
Okay. Mr. Vickery, I do want to understand from you, sir, quickly on the aspect of China and the UN and certain statements that have been made by the UN Secretary General as well, asking for China to play a more vital role as far as the United Nations is concerned. In your assessment, what would a greater role by China, say, in the UN really entail? Because this is in the larger context of, say, the United States of America, somewhere under Donald Trump, questioning the need for a United Nations.
Well, there's no question that China should play a greater and more positive role. It has great leverage with Russia. Russia, under Putin, has provided the greatest transgression of the principles of the United Nations since World War II. China, like India, should provide greater leadership in regard to getting back to those principles. What has happened, of course, under Donald Trump is that he's basically abdicated the role of leader of the free world. What he's done is turn everything about him, about aggrandizement personally, to try to move away from relationships, which we've been building with India, particularly for over 30 years, and move to a transactional real estate kind of approach. It's not a question of medium or long term, it's what are you going to do for Donald Trump right now? And we in the United States are facing that problem just as India and the rest of the world are. You may know that yesterday a court of appeals declared the tariffs to be illegal that Donald Trump is imposing. This will now go to the Supreme Court. So these problems which are created by this shift from the principles which have largely kept the peace since the end of World War II is very, very disturbing for all the nations of the world. And I think it's perfectly appropriate for the Secretary General of the United Nations to say that China should play a more positive role. You think particularly its relationship with Russia. If China and India would stop buying Russian oil, Putin and Russia would fall tomorrow. There's no question about that. So yes, we need to be able to work together. The United Nations provides a framework and a system of values for doing that. And one would hope that people would move away from the reversion which Donald Trump has shown to 19th century thinking about imperialism and great powers being able to divide up the world and move back to what has kept peace and built prosperity throughout the world since World War II.
All right. On that note, I want to bring back Mr. Andrew Leung into the conversation as well. Mr. Leung, your thoughts on the same, on what Mr. Raymond Vickery has also just pointed out, that somewhere, in a way, America under Donald Trump has abdicated its role as leader of the free world. Is there somewhere a worry that in the vacuum that's being created, China could potentially take over?
Well, China is the largest contributor to the United Nations peacekeeping force amongst the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. And of course, China has never renegated or deferred its contributions to the finances of the United Nations, unlike other countries, including the United States. But I think that as far as China is concerned, it's not out to conquer territories. It's defending its sovereignty, even though some of the sovereignty claims are challenged by other countries. So I think that in a world where it's totally upended and disorderly, where the supply chains are disrupted, it's high time, and also while humanitarian disasters are happening across the world, and Iraq and over Gaza, and also in Africa, it's the absence of the role of the United Nations is ringing very loud. So I think that the call for the United Nations to play an important role, and for China, along with the Global South, and trying to steer the world along with the United Nations on the basis of the United Nations Charter towards a more rule-based order, which has of course benefited China hugely since its foundation by the United States after the Second World War, and this is what's all about.
Right, absolutely. I'm going to request all our guests to stay on with us because there's some more updates coming in. Russian President Vladimir Putin will be meeting Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the 2025 SCO Summit in Tianjin. The discussions will focus on strengthening Russia-China relations across political, economic and cultural sectors. Moreover, Putin hopes the SCO Summit will provide a platform to enhance the organization's role in responding to global challenges and promote a fairer, diverse world order. The SCO Summit comes against the backdrop of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict, and so Russia is seeking to leverage its partnership with China to support its international standing. Following the summit, Putin will also be the main guest at a military parade in Beijing as part of China's national celebrations. On that, let me bring in Major General Sanjay Meston, defense and geopolitical expert who's with us on the broadcast. Major General Sanjay Meston, how do you read the growing relationship amidst the threat of American tariffs between Russia and China?
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, sorry. Can I just hear the question once again? Actually, I'm just traveling
Yes,
in the vehicle.
Major Sanjay Meston, I want to understand from your perspective, how do you view the growing ties between Russia and China amidst the threat of American tariffs? Okay, we seem to have lost that line with Major General Sanjay Meston, but if I can bring in Mr. Raymond Bikri back into the conversation here. Mr. Bikri, I want to understand from your perspective as well, how exactly is the United States of America viewing this growing relationship, not only between China and Russia, but also between India and Russia? Of course, all of these nations have had very close historical ties, but this current summit is taking place in very interesting geopolitical developments. So how exactly is the US now viewing the fact that China is bringing on Putin not only during the SCO Summit, but also as one of the key guests at a military parade?
Well, unfortunately, at this point, President Donald Trump and the Trump administration really has no strategy in regard to world affairs, other than saying that the United States basically is able to go it alone. So the idea that Russia and China are growing more closely together, I don't think really registers with President Trump and his supporters in the administration. Unfortunately, as I have said, he has a real estate developer's transactional view of the world. And he thinks that he has greater leverage than either China or Russia, and that it'll be his way or the highway. To build peace and prosperity requires at least two things. One, it requires a strategy, and that includes your assessment of the relationship between China and Russia. And two, it requires partners. In this day and age, the idea of Russia having imperial interests in Eastern Europe and on its territory, China being the great power for Asia, and the United States having its sphere of influence in North America and in to some extent South America. That perception went out with the wars of the 20th century. But I don't believe that President Trump grasps that. He still thinks that he has all the cards, as he would say, and then he can play it. Unfortunately, we need leadership. And I believe that leadership should come from India. India has a great tradition in its constitution of human rights, of value of the individual. China does not have that. Russia does not have that. That does not mean that you don't need to work with China and Russia. But India needs to step forward and play a leadership role separate and apart from simply reacting to whether Donald Trump has woken up on the wrong side of the bed and imposed some additional tariff, or indeed just reacting to questions about China and Russia. It takes a more comprehensive worldview, a leadership view, which is based on fundamental values which are in the Indian Constitution, and are largely being followed, as opposed to authoritarian regimes such as that which are in China and in Russia.
All right, Mr. Vikri, stay on with us. We've also learned that Chinese President Xi Jinping has met with the Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli in Tianjin on Saturday ahead of the SCO Summit. The leaders discussed strengthening China-Egypt relations, marking the 70th anniversary of diplomatic ties in 2026. Xi emphasized deepening cooperation in trade, new energy and joint manufacturing. Madbouli hailed China as Egypt's key partner, expressing readiness to enhance coordination in global and regional affairs to protect developing countries' interests and counter unilateralism. On that note, I also want to bring in Mr. Andrew K.P. Leung back into the conversation. Mr. Leung, interesting developments taking place at the SCO. The Chinese president, we're learning, Mr. Leung, has met with the Egyptian leader, who has hailed China as one of Egypt's key partners in the years to come. We were just discussing the question of a vacuum being created as far as certain agencies like the UN is concerned. But when we talk about a global leadership vacuum, what are the implications of China actually leveraging this opportunity to somewhere take over the role that the United States of America was playing so far? And will China really stay true to the commitment of being multilateral rather than unilateral?
First of all, I don't think China or Beijing wants to take over the role of the United States, because after all, the world order has been founded by the United States for so long and has benefited China hugely. But I think what Beijing wants is to reject the current disruptions and the one-sided tilt towards Americans' own selfish interests, towards a more inclusive world. And then as partners, of course, included Egypt and other countries and Turkey, because Egypt sits right at the conduit of China's Belt and Road Initiative, connecting China with Central Asia and Eurasia. But I think that unlike India, China has got a stranglehold over the Achilles heel of the United States, and hence China is more able to withstand the pressure from the United States than perhaps many other countries. The stranglehold is, of course, China's dominance in the rare earths, not so much supply, because you can find rare earth in other countries, but in processing. China controls over 95% of the entire world's processing of rare earths, and these capacities has been forced onto China. Not that China's right from the start developed this initiative, but it was forced on China because these processes were extremely dirty and then extremely complicated. Nobody wants them. They're lumped onto China. And China, over the past several decades, has developed the capacity and the skills to refine these processes. Now it's very difficult to replace this process all at once, and it takes a long time. And hence China has this stranglehold to withstand American pressure and would be in a better position to reconfigure the world towards a more cooperative environment paradigm, including partners like Egypt.
All right, I request both the guests to stay on with us. As in further developments, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also arrived in China after a 7-year gap, marking his participation in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin. PM Modi is set to meet the Chinese President Xi Jinping tomorrow, with India-China relations at the forefront. The two leaders aim to keep bilateral ties stable and positive, focusing on regional peace and prosperity. Modi may have a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin during the summit as well. And his visit to China comes amid tensions with the US over tariffs on Indian exports and Russian oil purchases. Mr. Raymond Vikri, I'm coming back to you on this. I want to understand from your perspective, as far as India-China ties are concerned, we've not seen a very stable relationship between the two neighbors in the past 7 years. But somewhere, do you think that the Trump tariffs could force India and China to relook at their relationship and find further stability? Or will that be difficult in the times to come, because there is a clear trust deficit as far as India and China are concerned?
I think that you've put your finger right on the key issue, and that is the trust deficit. Obviously, since independence in 1947, there have been ups and downs in the India-China relationship. We, I think, all remember that during the first years of independence, Prime Minister Nehru had the Hindi Chindi bye-bye brotherhood of India and China. That went out the window in 1962 when China invaded India to take over territory. And so there are certain underlying difficulties, and we can name them all the way from the Dalai Lama to what happens in the Indo-Pacific. But at base, there is a question of values. India has enshrined in its constitution the values of the individual. And largely respects those and has its polity founded on it. China does not have that. China has moved in that direction, but every time you have something like a Tiananmen Square or a takeover in Hong Kong, the cause of human rights, not to mention the Uyghurs in Western China, the cause of individual liberties are set back. That doesn't mean that India and China and the United States and Russia and Western Europe and the rest of the world don't need to cooperate and get back to a rules-based approach, but it does indicate certain difficulties. So I see the focus on meetings between Xi and Modi or any two leaders to be only superficial indications of the relationship. Nations have interests, and hopefully in regard to India and the United States and others, those include the values of respect for the individual. But it's unfortunate the way in which the tariff situation has pushed China and India and even Russia closer together. And hopefully cooler heads are going to prevail in India and around the world to get us back to a situation which gets us back on the road to peace and prosperity. And of course, underlying all of this are the security issues having to do with nuclear weapons, which are absolutely fundamental in an existential way to the continuation of the world order.
Absolutely. On that note, I thank both Mr. Andrew K.P. Leung and Mr. Raymond Vickery for joining us in NewsX World with that perspective. But we have some more news coming in. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has spoken to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He has said that he informed the Prime Minister about the talks with President Trump in Washington with the participation of European leaders. Ukrainian President emphasized on the ties with India and said that it was a productive and important conversation. Zelensky has said that the two countries coordinated their positions ahead of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit and emphasized on the call with the Prime Minister that the end of this war must begin with an immediate ceasefire with the necessary silence. The Ukrainian president has also thanked PM Modi and has said that India is ready to make the necessary efforts and to deliver the appropriate signal to Russia and other leaders during the meetings on the sidelines of the summit. Big developments taking place during the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting taking place in China. We're now learning that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has spoken to the Indian Prime Minister. Joining us is Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former diplomat from New Delhi. Ambassador Dayal, like I said, interesting developments taking place amidst the SCO Summit. We've just read on social media, the Ukrainian president himself has posted that he's had a conversation with the Indian Prime Minister and that India and Ukraine have, ahead of the SCO Summit, discussed the way forward and how Ukraine now expects India to give some sort of a signal to Russia at the SCO. Is that something that's going to happen in your assessment?
Well, India has always said that it is not an era of war. Our Prime Minister has repeatedly emphasized this. And we have cautioned both Russia and Ukraine against escalation because the consequences are going to be terrible if this war continues, not just for these two countries, but for the entire region and perhaps for the whole world. So it is up to these two countries to heed our Prime Minister's very, very sane advice and find ways to de-escalate and, in fact, to end the war. Now, Trump has tried to end it, but, he has taken a position which appears to be much more conciliatory towards Russia. He has to be very balanced in his approach. Now, there are various factors which have to be taken into account. For instance, will Russia give back to Ukraine territories which are annexed by it, for instance, Crimea and the Donbass region? Russia has declined and has said that it is not going to return any territories. But Ukraine insists on getting back whatever territories Russia has occupied. It's a very, very important stumbling block. And then again, there is this larger question of Ukraine joining NATO. So there has to be some compromise found. And our Prime Minister has always advised in favor of finding these compromises and ending the conflict. So if Prime Minister Modi spoke to the Ukrainian President Zelensky, it was in this very, very broad ongoing context that we want this war to end. And at the SCO Summit, when Prime Minister meets the Russian President, Mr. Putin, I'm sure he will also counsel him in the same sort of way. So to repeat what I've been saying, India stands for ending the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and Prime Minister Modi has been extending all efforts in this regard.
Absolutely. Ambassador Dayal, thank you so much for joining us on NewsX World. And with that, we leave you with my colleague Megha Sharma, who has spoken to a Chinese Kathak dance group from Beijing at the SCO Summit in Tianjin. And she's also bringing us a report on Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's participation at the Tianjin Summit, which has brought together many Indians in China. We leave it to Megha and these conversations.
I just want to have a word with all of you. What beautiful dancers you are. And I wanted to know, are you all Chinese descent? You're all Chinese. And you also, but you talk such great English and you dance such beautiful Kathak. How did you learn this Kathak dancing?
I went to India especially to learn Kathak. I found my guru in Kathak in India because I feel like if I'm serious with this dance form, I need to find a guru in India. So I especially went to India to learn Kathak.
And how many years did you spend in India to learn?
Till now I've been learning for 12 years and I have stayed in India for almost like 4 years.
Wow, that's amazing. What about you? What's your story? How did you end up learning Kathak?
I learned Kathak from the Indian embassy. They have a teacher from India and I learned for 1 year and practice with our team for 3 years.
How was it performing for Prime Minister Modi today?
It's so lucky. Yeah, we are so happy to have this chance. Yeah.
Did he appreciate your dance?
Yeah, very.
Yes. What about you? Where did you learn Kathak from? For how many years have you been performing Kathak?
3 years.
So have you all traveled from Beijing to Tianjin for this special?
Especially for that, yeah.
And why? What interested you to learn Kathak?
So actually, I love the attitude that how Indian people respect the arts. And it's a kind of like dedication. That's really I feel really touched with that kind of attitude. Secondly, like Kathak and the artistry is like so amazing, and it is the combination of Shiva and Shakti. Yeah. So
Do you think? Is there any plan in the future of any of you traveling to India? Because we would love to have you.
definitely we will go. Yes, we will all travel there. Yeah.
You all have been so wonderful. You look so beautiful, and your dance form is exceptional. Thank you for talking to us. So these were some of the. In fact, yes. Please show us a few of your moves. So there's some. Yes, so these are the beautiful Kathak dancers who performed for Prime Minister Narendra Modi just a short while ago. These are all Chinese nationals. They've come from Beijing, especially in Tianjin today, for this special performance for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. They have been learning this beautiful Kathak dance form for the past several years. In fact, one of them over here was in India for 12 years learning the dance form. Wonderful. Congratulations to all of you for such a beautiful dance performance. Thank you. As I can see, if you look around over here, there are a lot of members of the Indian diaspora. Many of them have left since then, because after the Prime Minister arrived and he was greeted by all of them, he has met them. They were of course cheering him on, and very happy. People very enthusiastic, chanting Vande Mataram, Bharat Mata Ki Jai, and very, very happy that the Prime Minister is here in their country, in Tianjin. Let's quickly speak to some of the members of the diaspora. Tell me something about yourself.
Myself, Murali. I am from Kerala. Been to China business for a long time, and we all are looking forward, because very excited to meet our Prime Minister.
You have a little baby over here you've brought. Is it a boy or a girl?
He's a boy.
Okay, you brought the young baby over here to meet Prime Minister Modi. How was your experience?
Our experience was really good, and he's the youngest Indian community member who met Modi ji, and he, spent time with him, like few minutes with him. And I am so happy and glad that he could meet him, such young, Indian member.
Yes.
And we are so happy to be here and lucky.
Worth every minute's wait. It was awesome. Yes. So, what was the experience? Are you from Tianjin, or are you from some other part? Beijing. So you traveled from Beijing especially for this?
Yes. Some 20-30 people of us traveled together.
And every whole busload who's come from Beijing, and we've been waiting since.
How many days have you been planning this for?
Week now.
Yeah,
We registered 2 weeks back.
2 weeks back,
so,
and
then we got the confirmations, and some of us got lucky because we didn't get confirmed but still get to meet him. That's bonus for us.
Modi ji only on screen. We never thought that we could see him like this, and he was so gracious. He just shook hands with as many people as he could, and he saw little children. He tried to strike some conversations with them. It was all so amazing. We could not have asked for more. For all the number of hours that we waited here, it was totally worth the wait.
And there you see, so many of them. There are people gathered from all walks of life. They're restaurateurs, they're businessmen, they're housewives, they're newborn children. The mothers who have just brought them over here simply because they want them to catch a glimpse of Prime Minister Modi. In fact, Prime Minister Modi was gracious enough to hold those children in his arms, maybe shake hands with them, just the way that the Prime Minister is around children. It's his jovial best. But I'll keep bringing you updates. Today is the eve of the SCO Summit. The Prime Minister has already arrived. He has gone to his chambers, and he's going to be taking rest for a while. Tomorrow is the big day, because the bilateral between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Xi Jinping begins at 12 p.m. local time, Beijing time, and after that in the evening at 7 p.m. is when the SCO Summit is going to officially be opened, and is going to be hosted as the keynote speaker. That is going to be President Xi Jinping. Stay tuned on NewsX.